A massive earthquake, the big one, could rock the Northwest tomorrow, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, and local elected officials are trying to prepare for any reality. A major concern is the so-called tank farm along the Willamette River in northwest Portland. Millions of gallons of fuel are stored there, and Multnomah County is considering a new way to potentially hold those fuel companies accountable should disasters strike. It's our big story tonight. That tank farm is officially called the Critical Energy Infrastructure Hub, or CEI Hub. When the earthquake hits, the soil underneath those 600 or so tanks will liquefy, potentially spilling that fuel. Experts have estimated a spill could reach between 100 and 200 million gallons, with as much as 82 million gallons funneling directly into the Willamette. Over the years, there have been efforts to try and mitigate the risk created by the CEI hub. 2 years ago, the Oregon legislature passed a law requiring the companies who store fuel in the tanks to prepare their facilities for a magnitude 9 earthquake. Now, a new effort from Multnomah County to prepare for a major spill could have passed last month, but it didn't receive a majority vote to move forward, despite a year and a half of development. And because the commission's term ends this month, the new county commission will determine whether or not it's worth pursuing. We're going to dive into the proposal tonight because there is a decent chance it's revived in the new year. The ordinance deals with a concept known as risk bonding. It's meant to make sure that the owners of the infrastructure, in this case the fuel tanks, pay for the cost of cleanup should anything catastrophic happen, rather than dumping the problem onto us, the public, to pay for. Experts who analyze the hub estimate that after a spill after an earthquake could cost anywhere from $350 million to $2.6 billion to clean up, likely more as time goes on. Multnomah County's proposed measure would require that the tank's owners show that they can actually pay that if it comes to it. Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron, who will not be on the commission next year, was trying to get it passed before her term is up.
There are a number of ways that companies can demonstrate that or certify that they have enough financial resources available to cover the cost of risk. So it could be a bond, it could be through insurance, it could be through just a bank attestation. There are a number of ways, and companies can use any of those or a combination of those to say, listen, here's how we prove we have this amount of resources that will be on hand when this catastrophe hits.
Myron says that while there are federal and state regulations that require companies to clean up oil spills, like the Oil Pollution Act or OPA, those laws have gaps and loopholes.
The problem is, for example, with the OPA, and so the companies need to have a trust fund available. They have to have resources available to do this. But there is what's called an act of God clause. So that the OPA would not necessarily apply in the event of, say, an earthquake.
When the ordinance was discussed at the county's last board meeting before Thanksgiving, it had quite a bit of support from the public.
I'm here today to ask, how much would it cost to replace my life? How do you assign a dollar amount capable of returning the almost 3,000 of my neighbors, friends, and family that will be eviscerated after the Cascadia earthquake causes the critical energy infrastructure hub to explode? How much money will it take to rectify the lives of the hundreds of thousands in our region who will be injured and endure untold exposure risks in the explosion's aftermath?
Another commissioner, Julia Brim Edwards, agreed that passing the ordinance was just as urgent as addressing homelessness.
But absolutely, if you look at the potential impact, this could be the most critical issue that we work on. I've been around public processes a long time. And frankly, the way, if you want to kill something, the easiest way to do it is delay or to not to take inaction. And I think that's a very dangerous thing for this commission to do, or to say that we are searching for the perfect, which we're never going to get to.
But other commissioners were less convinced. That includes former Commissioner Jesse Beeson, who was replaced this week, and Commissioner Lori Stegman. Stegman said she wanted to support it, but she heard too many concerns about the ordinance being incomplete as it's written now.
I am deeply disappointed that this policy is not further along than it is today. Many questions remain unanswered, and I cannot, in good conscience, support a policy that has not been thoroughly vetted. Some of the testimony that we've received, even from folks here today that are very supportive, raised some really valid questions. We've also received testimony regarding the lack of engagement from BIPOC community members, so I'd like to see more engagement there.
Stegman said she also has concerns about how much it would cost to implement, and she worries that oil companies will pass on their increased costs to consumers. The proposed ordinance also had some support from some incoming Portland City Council members who will be representing District 4, where the hub is located. That includes Mitch Green, who's an economist and says an economic approach like this is a good start.
You can't put a price on ecological disaster, and you can't put a price on the risk to life safety of people who live in Linton and, even District 2, neighborhoods across the river. And so we also need to be taking simultaneously steps to require reinforcement or relocation of these tanks. And that's a kind of a physical process that takes a little bit longer, and there's different approaches to dealing with that. And I don't see the risk bonding avenue as competing with those. I think it's sort of the first step, along with many others that we'll have to take to deal with this.
In the end, the ordinance failed by a 2-2 vote. It required a majority. County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson was not at the meeting and therefore did not get a vote.
Washington State has already done this. We're not inventing this. And 18 months of sort of working on it and getting the details down was built into the ordinance. So literally there is nothing that would have been lost by passing this. The chair was not at the meeting. And so she's voiced support all along and wasn't there. And so two commissioners, I guess, did not see the urgency of this, voted against it.
Myron argued that changes could be made down the road, but it wasn't enough to sway Beeson or Stegman. So now the incoming county commission will have to decide whether to take it up after they take office in January. Myron said the board agenda was too full to add it to the remaining meetings this year. But she said she's talked to incoming commissioners and they seem supportive, so we'll keep following it. By the way, we also reached out to the Western States Petroleum Association to get the oil company's take on this. We've not yet heard back from them. In the meantime, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the tank farm issue. Should the county and/or the city move with more urgency when it comes to managing the risk there when it comes to the big one? Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090.